People who live in a rural area out in the country. What will city folk never understand? I grew up in a tiny town in the south. One weekend, I was visiting from college and pulled up behind a guy on a horse waiting at the stoplight. I was like, wow, when did we get a stoplight? I'm also from a one stoplight town, except it breaks all the time. So they put up stop signs. Apparently we used to have 2 stoplights. The other was strung between 2 buildings. One of the buildings burned down, so they just put up stop signs. Traffic is almost never a thing. Waiting behind a tractor that's going 20 miles per hour. If he's a real leadfoot, totally is. Lose power in a storm. Better not flush the toilet. Your well pump is out too. Corollary: filling the bathtub with water before a storm so that you'll have water if the power doesn't come back for a few days. I honestly didn't understand that this wasn't a thing in the city until recently. I thought losing electricity meant you lose running water. I live in a small city now, moved here recently, and thought I'd have to buy water fill the tub before it stormed. I had the identical experience just recently as well. Lost power for 4 days. First 2 days I didn't use any extra water simply because I thought I couldn't. Having running water makes power outages completely okay. I spend half my time in the middle of nowhere, half my time in the middle of a giant city, so I feel like I've seen both sides. What city folk don't understand is, you go grocery shopping in town on Monday or whatever day. After Monday, you've now got all the food you're going to have until next Monday. Wednesday night, you get a strong craving for Ben Jerry's cinnamon bun ice cream. Well, you're not getting any, because it's a half-hour drive into town and the only grocery store there closed at 6. Forget to buy an ingredient you needed for a meal. Well, now you're having that meal without that ingredient, or you're having something from out of the deep freeze. But the flip side of this inconvenience is, you can go an entire day without having to talk to or interact with anyone. Yes, there is no, I don't want to eat this, I'll just order a pizza. There is nowhere to just go grab something to eat. Unless you want to drive 30 minutes you're cooking, or having a sandwich. I feel like you rural folk have never heard of traffic. 30 minutes is not that far to hit up a store, even for a city slicker. It's nothing for me to drive 4 hours one way to get to see a specialist if I'm having a health issue. I usually make the trip in one day, 8 hours of driving to see the doctor for one 15-minute appointment. There is literally nothing between the small place where we live and the next largest city 4 hours away. We always tell people that are passing through to be sure to make sure your car is full of gas, use the bathroom, and get anything you might want to eat or drink now. Because there is nowhere along the way to really stop and do that. My commute is currently an hour and a half, as it's the closest job I've found. Edit: I'm aware that this can be common, and it is actually cheaper to commute for me 73 miles if I consider rent versus gas. I think city people would freak out to find out how few people actually lock the doors when they live out in the country. Growing up, we had 6 people living in the house and none of us even had a key to the house. We never locked the house. Hard to lock the doors if you haven't seen the front door key in 10 years. Besides, what if somebody needs something? Neighbors leave notes on the kitchen counter all the time. The excitement as a child of visiting an actual town. My parents, both city folks who moved to the country, used to make fun of us kids for being excited at escalators. Well, maybe if we saw them more than once or twice a year we wouldn't act like they were so special. Now, would we? My grandmother used to use escalators as a distraction for me and my siblings when she started having problems walking. We grew up on a farm, so we'd walk in somewhere that happened to have an escalator and go apeshit, begging to ride, since they weren't commonplace for us. And she'd find a nearby bench to watch us essentially doing laps, going up and down like little weirdos. Once we'd tired ourselves out and she'd rested, we'd go on with whatever we were doing before we spied the escalator. Our firefighters are volunteers. I know it's only a mile away, but trust me, we really cannot walk there. Similarly, It's only a mile away, so it'll only take a minute or so to drive there, because I always assume 60 miles per hour in the country. A mile in the city can take 5 or even 10 minutes. Our police department has such an uneventful life. One New Year's Eve, when I was little, the police on the job had nothing to do, so they stopped at our New Year's party. The officers were showing us kids the inside of a police car and were just casually talking to the adults. After about 10 minutes, they finally got a call to catch a runaway cow. Apparently some farmer's cow got out and didn't know where it went. The police searched for about an hour and never found it. That was the only situation of the entire night. Every week the local newspaper prints each town's police calls in the police blotter. Most of the cases are literally something like 11:47 p.m. police received a call from a Walnut Road resident reporting a runaway cow. Police arrived at the scene, but did not find the cow. Once, in a very subtle display of wit, the newspaper reported multiple calls in a row about the same cow, who was clearly traveling from house to house at a leisurely cow pace, but still cunningly managed to evade authorities no fewer than 3 times. That not having a vehicle can literally not be an option sometimes. For any real groceries I have to drive over a hill at least 10 miles. There is no public transportation or ride sharing. Edit due to some comments. I'd like to make it clear that I'm aware that some city folk also face stuff like this. I'm just posting this due to dealing with a number of people at college from cities who have no license and consider it odd that we focus on having a running car. 2 fingers lift off the steering wheel every time another car goes by. Grew up in rural West Tennessee. My grandfather would get mad if people didn't wave back. He would say that he had wasted a wave. You never waste a wave. Aside from everything mentioned, making good with your neighbor, I don't mean drinks every Saturday night, but everyone helps everyone, because you will need it. Everything is 45 minutes 1.5 hours away. Whether you need some starting fluid for an engine, or he needs some eggs to finish up that pea crust before guests come over, or just help with a little physical labor. Hell, without me asking, my neighbor drove his tractor down the road to clear my snowy driveway. I'm not some old lady. I'm a 30-year-old dude with the machinery to do it myself. I've lived in the city, and not only do people not know their neighbors, but when they do it's usually over passive-aggressive behavior and not letting little things go. Oh, Jesus duck, they planted begonias within 3 feet of the property line, which is against city ordinance. Who cares? What's better, having those begonias 6 further back, or neighbors who don't hate you? Had a GF that was upset that I regularly let my neighbors use my hose to fill their drinking water before they got a well set up at their camp. They're my neighbors. I'm not going to make them continue to drink river water. Holy shit, yes. I moved into my house about 2 months ago, and my new neighbors and I always help each other out. Need my car fixed. Neighbor across the street is an old man who has never taken his car to a mechanic. Just done all the work himself. Need to borrow some tools. Neighbor to the left of me is a carpenter and won't just lend me his tools. He'll actually come over and help me with whatever I need. Anybody need help with their computer, they knock on my door and I'll drop whatever I'm doing to come help them out. You just don't get that in big cities. Wanna go to Walmart or GameStop? Okay, 40 Minute Drive, here we come. We moved up into the mountains a couple years ago, and life up here is different. Everything is far away, unless you want to go to the local market that has prices marked up high as a skyscraper. Barely any sidewalks or street lights, and internet is slower. Everybody knows each other, so gossip is an ongoing high thing to talk about, but the lack of traffic and the beautiful view is hard to beat. Silence is not the distant buzz of cars or airplanes overhead. Silence is when even the frogs or crickets aren't chirping, when all you can hear is the rustling of leaves as the midnight wind blows. No random conversations as a couple walk by your window. No bells or horns. My country living is in the middle of the forest on a lake. The only time you hear your neighbor is when they mow their lawn, or it's the weekend and everyone is at the lake partying. Other than that, it's Mother Nature's finest choir. It stormed 2 days ago. so I have to use mobile data for this. Because the Wi-Fi is still out, I can't get Wi-Fi where I live. Nowhere provides any kind of high-speed internet. We were praying for Comcast. It's satellite internet which we can't get unless we cut down all the trees in our yard. Or nothing. Verizon coming back with unlimited data is a godsend. Edit can't get internet where I live. I know there is a difference of Wi-Fi and internet connection. But my pregnant brain made a slip of tongue, especially after not having internet for so long. Edit to I know that you can put satellites on tin roofs and poles in yards. I'm repeating what satellite companies here's looking at you DirecTV have told me. I don't fully believed that they can't provide service to me, but more that they don't want to because they won't make a lot of money and it's more work for them in an area they don't have many customers and an old house that's never had any TV service of any kind. DirecTV didn't even send out a DirecTV person, but a third-party DirecTV representative who only got paid for coming to my house if I signed up. DirecTV gave me no options of signing up. We can't put it on your roof or a pole in your yard, and even if we did, we can't guarantee you will have more than a 60% chance of decent working TV, which means the guy they sent out didn't even get paid. If you decide to send out a last minute invitation, I require more than 10 measly minutes notice before the event of said invitation. The things I miss out on because I live 45 minutes away from anything. Peace and quiet, able to see the stars at night. I'm not terribly far from a city, but rural enough to be away from light pollution. Most of the people around me leave lights off at night outside, so nothing really affects sky viewing at night. I have a grocery store, pizza places, bakery, gas station, and liquor store all close enough to be convenient, yet not too close for comfort. Having said that, I grew up in a major city metro area, and I don't miss it at all. 10 miles isn't far away. It's a 10-15 minute drive. A gun can be owned the same way you own a shovel or rake. It's just another tool. Drinking water and sanitation are both handled on site and are your own responsibility to maintain. Internet connections suck. I live out in the country. I hear gunshots all the time. Something is always in season, or someone is trying to get a critter out of the yard. I don't really pay attention. The neighbor could be murdering his wife and I wouldn't think a thing if I heard shots from their house. Uber is not an option. Funny story about that. My buddy lives in the country on about 16 acres 40 miles or so from Indianapolis. He was at a bar in downtown Indy and got drunk. He found an Uber willing to drive him home for only $40. He tipped the guy an extra $20 plus took him for a ride on his ATV when they got to his house and burned one with him. Made a friend in the process. Gunshots. Man, it's a nice day out. Of course they're out shooting. My girlfriend and her father were at his hobby farm once and heard a huge explosion. They figured it must have been an accident at the nearby ethanol plant. They later found out the neighbors decided to dispose of their large on-site propane tank link by shooting at it. If someone needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter if it's inconvenient or even if you like the person. You just help them because sure as shit you're going to need their help sometime. Edit and it's just the right thing to do. Exactly. As an example, the library I work for is in the city as far as this thread goes. But we have a bookmobile that goes out to the neighboring rural towns. The bookmobile ended up getting rutted in the snow, and one of the kiddos that was on it told the bookmobile driver to call their grandpa. Lo and behold, a bit later, grandpa is coming down the street in his tractor to pull the bookmobile out. Edit spelling. There is always that one cow from that one dude that always escapes to wander the roads at night, and it's 2 AM. Some cop or passing driver wakes you up, asking if that's your dumbest cow standing in the road. Then you have to call your nearest neighbor to call that one dude to get his ducking cow out of the ducking road. Again, exception every person summoning me to that missing cow thread. You are not excellent. If there is a full moon, you can go outside and you can read a book because it's so bright. I really feel sorry for people in big cities who've never really seen a night sky. Everyone owns a gun and there's nothing weird or crazy about it. That mostly everyone is actually really friendly. At least where I live, as soon as you get off the paved roads and hit the dirt roads, almost every car passing will wave to you. This is kinda funny. When I have a friend who lives in the city in the car with me, I'll wave to someone as they go by, and they'll ask who that was, and I'll say I don't know. They get really confused why I would wave to someone I don't know, but that's just how it is here.